Hi, I'm Ursula Kofahl Lampron. Well, to give you a little bit of background about myself, I was born in Germany right after the war, and I'm one of these kids that actually played amongst the ruins, so I have some memories of that, and it has affected my art because of that. At 5 years of age, I immigrated with my parents to the United States, where I grew up, and received my very first pencil. Now, this pencil was the beginning of my art career. I started drawing horses almost immediately because it was the animal that I preferred and most loved, and that was basically my background. I married a Canadian, and in 1970 I immigrated to Quebec, where I lived in a small village called Actonville, and there I learned my French with my mother-in-law. When I turned 50, I believe I was 52 or 53, I went to Concordia University and majored in art, which was the fulfillment of a childhood dream. And at that point in my life, I became much more interested in doing my art on a professional basis rather than just as a hobby. Well, I started out with pastel in the very beginning of my professional art career. I liked it because it was immediate. I was still working at the time, and I could go and paint for 5 minutes and there wasn't a whole lot to clean. It's dry, you apply it to some paper or whatever your object is, and you can put it away in 5 minutes. So it was a matter of necessity that I started out with pastel. Eventually I went into oil painting, which I loved, and although I don't do any oil painting anymore, because when I went back to university and studied at Concordia, I traveled by bus. And in order to bring my paintings with me, and some of them were quite large, I had to travel by bus and public transportation, and I also had to carry them quite a distance. And so acrylic became my paint of preference, simply because it dries quickly, it's very immediate, and there's no danger in transporting it. I love acrylic because I can paint a painting very quickly, or I can make it thick, I can make it look like watercolor, I can make it look like oils depending upon the varnish I apply. So it's a very versatile paint, and it has become my paint of preference. One of my favorite pieces of art, because it truly represents who I am, is a painting of galloping horses, and they're in varied colors. It's a very contemporary looking painting. It has colors that are unrealistic for horses, but it's a painting that represents me because they're running and they're active, and they're not aggressive, but they're full of energy and life, and they represent who I am. My art today is about my personal preferences in life. I never really know what I'm going to paint until I sit down and start, but everything that I do paint are part of my experience, my life experience, and they all represent things that mean something important to me. My art does not have a message. A lot of artists paint to give a message, and that's a very valid thing, and I admire that kind of art. But my art is basically to create joy in the person who's viewing my art. It's very important that when they look at one of my paintings that they have pleasure. And yeah, basically that's what it is. I want other people to enjoy the art. I want them to want to possess it because they like it so much. I can't think of a better thing to do in life, particularly in the epoch that we're living in, than to bring joy into other people's lives and by visual means. Like my irises, I have a painting of my irises, and there are about 2 or 3 different layers, and some of which I allow to come through so that they light up the canvas. And another one, when I was speaking about earlier about throwing paint and letting it just sort of go where it wants to be, I'll drip. I'll take a painting and I'll allow it to drip. And from there, I'll create something visual within it. And I use the drips and the different areas of space that were not dripped as part of the creative process. So I take a canvas, and as I said earlier, I mess it up, so to speak, so that I'm not working with a white canvas, because I find that very intimidating. What I might do at that point is visualize something that has inspired me and proceed to try to put that on the canvas. If that doesn't work, I'll paint over it. I'll throw it on the floor, and I'll look at it, and I'll go around it on the floor. I'll look at it on my easel. I might throw some paint at it. I might completely wash it off and start all over again. And sometimes when you wash it off, the most beautiful things happen to the canvas, and all this creativity comes out, and your imagination just can run wild. So most of my art, it's very rarely that I will use a photograph unless it's a portrait. Most of my art is totally spontaneous. It's very creative because I do not use photos. And it's a type of art called automatist, which is usually applied to abstract art because it's done without any preconceived thought. You go to this white canvas and you just start painting, and whatever comes out of it, comes out of it. And that is how I like to work most of my art pieces. So they're very spontaneous, very creative. As an artist, sometimes I lose my focus or my inspiration, and at that point in time, I feel that I need to take a break. I need to take a break from the studio. I need to take a break from the painting. I need to refresh my spirit. I need to do other things that will incite me to want to paint again. And this could include anything: a walk in the park, going to a museum, looking at other artists and what they're creating, what they're doing. Also, communing with other artists can give you ideas for new artworks. So there are many ways to get over that kind of, what you call it, a break in your inspiration. And you can rediscover it by those means. I believe each piece of art, well done, has a value and importance of its own, because a good abstract or a good figurative artist or an art that has a message or art that's strictly for visual pleasure, all of these are valid pieces of art. And it's very difficult for me to say, well, I don't really like abstract, because I do like abstract. I like figurative, I like contemporary. There is no preference on my part. The advice that I would give to someone starting out in an artistic career today would be to study as much as you possibly can with artists that you admire. If you have the ability, go and get some educational training in the techniques of art. Yes, you can teach yourself, and it can be just as good as an education that you would find, for instance, at the university. However, every aspect of art that you can explore and look into, I suggest that you go ahead and do it. My favorite failure is giving importance to the naysayers. I mean, how many people have been told, oh, art, there's no money in art, you'll never make it. That's something that I listened to at first because I believed it. And if you believe something like that, well, then how can you succeed? So for me, my greatest success has been to go above and beyond the naysayers and believe in myself. And this started when I went to Concordia University, because I studied with so many young people, and they were also intensely confident about their art, and some of it rubbed off on me. And so this is why I love young people so much, because they're so passionate, and I learned to be more passionate and have more confidence in my art. And that's what everybody should try and aim for as an artist. Don't listen to anybody. Do what you want. Do what you like. Well, actually, COVID-19 has been helpful to me because I didn't have any places to go or other things to do. I wasn't setting up solos. I wasn't hanging up paintings in galleries. I wasn't marketing my work because of the limited amount of places one can go to market right now. So I spent all my time at the studio, which meant I was painting a lot more. And painting comes from painting. The more you paint, the more you create, the more you desire to paint, the more you do create. Also, you evolve. The more you paint, the more you evolve. So I learned a lot about paint application, composition, what I do and what I do not want to paint. And I created, in a matter of a few months, paintings that normally would have taken me maybe a year or 2 years to create because of the extra time that COVID gave me. So yes, it was definitely an advantage from that point of view. As for the marketing or getting those paintings out to sell, well, COVID has hindered me. But I figure that will all be taken care of soon. I think we're going to see more artists going onto computers. There'll be having their sites. There'll be more sites online. Artists will be showing their things more online. Even galleries today have online shows, and more we're seeing galleries that are online, and I see it continuing that way. I also think, however, that the small galleries will also make a comeback. Like right now, a lot of the small galleries have closed, and you have, a few here and there that still exist, but I see them coming back and filling a need for artists in another way than they used to. It used to be you would go in there, and if the gallerist liked your art, he would take it, and if not, no. But many galleries now offer a way to show your art where I guess you could call it a bit of profit sharing, because you pay for the space and the gallery shows your work. And well, that probably reduces the commission too. So yes, I see things evolving in that way. Smaller galleries, more technology, more online galleries. One of the things I'd like to mention before the interview is over is that this studio is occupied by two other artists who are very dear to me, Jennifer Patterson-Jonas and Susan Stowe. Now, we are known in this particular neighborhood as the Golden Girls because we are all of a certain age, and we all like to do art, and we're a joyful gang. And I'd just like to mention them because they have some very interesting and valid art that they've also shown here at the studio. I'll mention the kind of art they do. Now, Jennifer is very much an artist similar to myself. She paints spontaneously and creatively. She rarely, if ever, uses a photo, same as I do. I never use a photo. We tend to use photos for reference only. And so she's very, very creative. Susan Stowe, she works a lot on wood. She loves to do animal paintings, and she's very, very good at it. Please come into the studio and see it as soon as COVID permits. You can find my art in one of the galleries, is the Le Balcon d'Art in St. Lambert. You can find my art online. I have my art on an online site called CIDI, which is international. It's an internationally known website. And there's another website. I have my own personal website. You can go on there, and also locally and here at my art studio. I have an artist Facebook page, and I also have a Facebook page which is actually more about my art than it is about myself, but it also talks about who I am and what I do. And I always show my art on that particular page. It's Ursula Kofahl Lampron.
I would like to acknowledge the support of the Official Language Minority Community Media Consortium and the Government of Canada for the Community Media Strategic Support Plan.